So today I'm going to talk to you about how this $4 item saved me nearly $10,000.
Let's see if this $4 item will protect my cinema camera.
If you actually zoom into this, this is terrible for sound, but you can probably still see the paint on here as it starts to fly off a little bit. Okay, I'm going to stop crinkling this, but if we zoom in, you can probably still see the paint on this from when I used it. And now it's on me. Okay, so aside from a vehicle, this red has been by far the biggest investment I've made to date, which honestly has me questioning my sanity in some of the shots and attempts that I made the other day. Because as you can clearly see, I was in the most literal of senses, risking it all for some of the shots that I got. Now, once again, a brief recap. If you haven't seen the most recent video, I have been currently DPing for about 6 months on a documentary that revolves around the Caribbean culture, which required me to film during Hollywood Carnival in Los Angeles in the month of June. Now, part of the weekend's festivities is the Juve, which in and of itself is an amazing time, but it is a filmmaker's nightmare with all of the various fluids flying around. So I had the bright idea, and one, I still can't believe I did this, and two, had I known how extreme it would have been, I probably wouldn't have, but to put my camera inside one of these, which is a camera protector rain cover. And somehow, by the grace of God and all things holy and righteous, it actually worked. But I will show you the actual build out I had, and then I will show you some of the footage and how I used it. Now, these are very cost effective. You get 2 of these in a package for $8 on Amazon. I will list it below. So this currently is probably most likened to my medium rig build out from my previous Komodo video. But of course, knowing that I was going to put this into a bag like this and to mitigate risks, I first removed the monitor, which means, well, actually, I removed the top handle and the monitor. One, so the red could actually fit in there, and then two, to mitigate the risk of unnecessary exposure of equipment to liquids. I did keep the side handle. In hindsight, had I thought about it, I probably would have packed or maybe I did, I can't remember, but I do have a smaller V-mount battery. Check the footage if I had that. So it was either this one or a smaller one. But I definitely lost the matte box. And instead of having the full Polar Pro matte box, I instead ran the smaller twist-on Polar Pro VNDs. So I'm almost sure I had a smaller V-mount battery now that I think of it, but we'll pretend like this was a smaller one that went here. Actually, no, we won't. I'll be back one more time. Can't be sure, but I think I had this battery on. That would have made more sense. Then, let's not break anything. Bag's clearly been through it already, but I don't want to damage this one. Then I just ever so slightly nestled this into the bag, which is going to be a pain now that I need to do it on camera. And then once the camera was in there, I ensured that I had enough slack on the back to where I could have this closed off and there was no way for the water to leak in from the back. And then on this front end, simply, oh yeah, this is still wet. Simply use the drawstring to pull this around the lens. For the most part, I think I had a piece of tape on the back here, but for the most part, I would operate the camera like this. Now, of course, there were going to be some trade-offs to shooting like this, of course, without using a monitor and then having to rely on the Komodo top screen through the plastic. I had to rely on autofocus and using the screen to touch to pull focus. So there are going to be a lot of shots that either are not in focus or the focus is jumping around. And that would be one of the few drawbacks to using the autofocus with the Canon RF lenses, because they're super fast when pulling focus, which is great for photography. But for a system that is still very new for Red with their autofocus, it's not a great combination. It works, especially if you don't have a lot of moving targets at varying degrees of depth of field. But when there's hundreds of people moving around, or you're moving around amongst hundreds of people in different areas, it's going to be a little chaotic with the autofocus. So that was a trade-off, but it was a risk worth taking to get some of the shots that I got. Now, the goal for me, especially working with like water and all the other things that were going on, was to shoot everything in super slow motion. But for me personally, I didn't like, especially when using these ND filters, I didn't like the noise pattern that I get when I crop in on the sensor. So I settled for using 4K 60. Now, even given with what I said about the autofocus issues, another thing that really made this possible was what I still feel is my favorite all-around lens that I own, which is the Canon RF 24-105, which I believe is weather sealed, but I definitely treat it like it was weather sealed. But even with that being said, I didn't, when using this around any types of liquids, I didn't zoom in past 35 millimeters as to not expose the cylinder of the lens to too many liquids. But I still love this lens, and I'll probably do another updated video about it, but it made a huge difference in being able to grab the shots that I wanted, because had I used any of my vintage lenses or any of my non-L Canon RF lenses, they would not have came back intact. Now, I really don't ever plan on doing something so cavalier with my equipment ever again. And if I did, I would definitely take much more appropriate precautions. But it is good to know that if I find myself in a much more traditional yet inclement scenario when working on a professional project, that I do have the equipment and the resources that I need to comfortably get the shots that I want, and to know that my camera gear will still stay intact. But let me know if you guys have any thoughts or questions or suggestions. I'm sure there are other ways I could have done this. It was a lot of last minute planning and just taking a risk and stepping out on faith and letting Jesus take the wheel. But let me know in the comment section below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. We're getting close to 1,000. We might hopefully be there by the time this video goes up. But either way, I appreciate all of you, and I will see you all in the next one.